This is the Realme GT3, the new phone with the fastest charging ever. And if 240-watt charging isn't enough for you, there are plenty of other flagship-killing features here too. I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's see what the Realme GT3 is all about in our full review. These days, charging speed is a hot battleground in the smartphone market, and Realme looks to trump all challengers with the Realme GT3. It has support for 240-watt charging, and no, it won't burn your house down. They say it's super safe, with over 60 layers of protection. Compared to last year's Realme GT2, the GT3 also brings a larger screen with a higher resolution and refresh rate, a new chipset, and a new microscopic camera. The battery capacity is smaller this time around though, probably due to the new charging tech. The design is quite different from last year as well. Rather than a paper-like synthetic back, now you get glass, with a smooth frosted finish that's a bit on the slippery side. The back curves into a plastic frame. There's something neat going on here next to the camera bump, a transparent window which is framed by colorful RGB LEDs. But what's inside the window? If you look at the right angle, you can see a Snapdragon logo, and that should be where the chipset resides. On the front of the Realme GT3 is a large 6.74-inch AMOLED with a 1240 by 2772 resolution and an extra fast 144Hz refresh rate. The high resolution means you get a pixel density of around 450 ppi, and content looks quite sharp. The contrast is of course great too. There's support for 10-bit color depth and HDR10+, and the color accuracy is great. The display is very bright too. We measured a maximum of 480 nits with the manual brightness slider, and this boosts up to 970 nits in auto mode when in bright sun. The refresh rate handling though could be better. In auto mode you rarely get the maximum 144Hz, even in system menus. We only saw the full 144 within Google Chrome. And it will dial down when idling to save energy, but not below 60Hz. There is a high refresh rate mode you can enable with settings to select 144Hz on a per app basis, but in this mode you won't get the auto switching. For audio, the Realme GT3 has a pair of stereo speakers. They earned a good score on our loudness chart, and the sound quality is decent, with clear vocals and highs and some bass. You can wake up and unlock the Realme GT3 using the under-display fingerprint reader. And there are plenty of options for storage on board, 128, 256, or 512 gigs, or even a whole terabyte. Let's go back to the Realme GT3's RGB LEDs. They can light up for notifications or calls, or as a charging indicator. The lights also turn on when you enable the GT mode. That's the Realme GT3's high-performance mode for gaming. Another thing that's nice to see is an IR blaster, which allows you to use the phone as a remote to control appliances with. Otherwise, the software experience here is basically the same as you'd get on any recent Realme, Oppo, or OnePlus phone. It's the latest Realme UI 4.0 on top of Android 13. You can find out more about Realme UI 4's specific features in our dedicated video. Under the hood of the Realme GT3 is a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset, the top Qualcomm chipset from last year. It's notable using a version of this chipset with lower CPU clock speeds than you typically see, sacrificing some raw performance for better power efficiency. Still, it's a significant upgrade over the Snapdragon 888 and the Realme GT2, and the multitasking and gaming experience is every bit flagship grade. The thermal management is excellent as well, and the Realme GT3 maintained high and stable CPU performance throughout our prolonged stress test. Now let's get into the Realme GT3's key feature, the crazy fast charging. The phone comes bundled with a proper cable and adapter. The cable is a thick one specifically designed to handle the current. Actually, the 240-watt charger isn't as huge as you might expect. Realme achieved the relatively compact size using gallium nitride technology. With this charging setup, we can't even measure the speed on the same scale as most other phones. We were able to top up the GT3 from 0 to 100% in just 11 minutes. Just as impressive is how much you can get from just a couple of minutes plugged in. In 5 minutes, we got 65% charge. But it's worth noting that the charging speed does taper off a bit as the battery warms up, as seen on this graph. Perhaps because of the charging tech, Realme has reduced the battery capacity to 4600 mAh compared to 5000 last year. It's no problem though. The GT3 was still able to score a great overall endurance rating of 117 hours in our proprietary tests. Now let's talk cameras. The Realme GT3 has a 50 megapixel main cam with a new sensor, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a new 2 megapixel microscope camera. Photos from the main cam look good, better than last year's model could do. They're sharp and detailed, with excellent dynamic range. The exposure is on the brighter side and the colors are on the warm side, lending a pleasant, cozy vibe. Portraits taken with the main cam are nice. Subjects are detailed and colorful, and the edge detection is excellent. However, the exposure can be off at times, with the subject coming out too bright looking. The ultra-wide cam's photos have lively colors and nice contrast, but they're low in detail and not too sharp. There's some noise and the dynamic range is limited. The microscopic cam isn't something you see every day, and it's more interesting than a generic 2 megapixel macro cam. It uses the LED flash to help expose the subject. The native magnification is 20 times, but you can go up to 40 digitally. You won't blow anyone away with the quality, but it's pretty neat overall. In low light conditions, the Realme GT3 will apply night mode processing automatically. There's also a dedicated night mode which produces basically the same results. The quality from the main cam at night is good, with lots of detail and virtually no noise. The dynamic range is wide, with preserved detail in shadows and well-contained highlights. The sharpening might be a bit excessive though, and the warm color temperature might not be everyone's cup of tea. The ultra-wide cam produces more true-to-life colors and hits the right color temperature. The dynamic range is good too, but the sharpness and detail leave more to be desired. Selfies are taken with a 16 megapixel front-facing cam. They're not great. They're way too soft and lack fine detail. At least the colors and dynamic range are nice. When it comes to videos, the main cam can record in up to 4K resolution at 60 FPS, and electronic stabilization is always on. 4K videos are pretty good, with plenty of detail and sharpness and wide dynamic range. The contrast does seem to be a bit off though. The ultra-wide is limited to 1080p resolution, and its video quality isn't good. It's soft, with washed out colors and narrow dynamic range. At night, the main camera delivers decent enough videos with good contrast, enough sharpness, and accurate colors. There is plenty of noise though. So that's the Realme GT3. It's a really nice flagship killer all around, and the fast charging is the best you can get right now. There are a couple of shortcomings. The ultra-wide and selfie quality aren't great, and you don't have ingress protection. But the biggest issue is that the GT3 is kind of expensive at its launch price. If you're not specifically looking for the fastest charging, there are lots of options that can provide more value for money. Thanks for watching guys. If you're interested in alternatives to the Realme GT3, one option could be last year's Realme GT2 Pro. Or you could have a look at the OnePlus 10 Pro. Let us know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one.